Thorin Grönbeck, Chris Cantwell, J. Michael Straczynski, Kyle Starks, and a slew of artists reveal some past stories of the Mad Titan and their ties to his new quest for the Black Infinity Stone. Thorin Grönbeck, Chris Cantwell, J. Michael Straczynski, and Kyle Starks deliver a cool little anthology of stories which detail some of Thanos' current plans and what he intends to do over the next couple of years of storytelling at Marvel. I thoroughly enjoyed how the stories really covered a good patch of Thanos' life, with one detailing his first love before death and what happened to her and what happened between them on Titan, a good old-fashioned Thanos being a big badass and defeating a huge army that was sent after him, and then probably my favourite story being Chris Cantwell's, which in classic Cantwell fashion ties back to the first time Drax appeared in Iron Man and Tony's interaction with a Thanos robot, which puts out a really zany theory regarding a future Thanos who is king of all reality, and the past that Iron Man and all the characters that we've seen and experienced through Marvel Comics from the very first issue is all just a simulation future Thanos is running to prevent everyone from rebelling against him and trying to keep everyone in line. It's such a great story filled with existential dread, with the fact that it could be very real and could actually be a thing that's actually happened, or it is just Thanos fucking with Tony and fucking with everyone, and in turn makes Tony go almost insane. And there's a great explainer as to why Tony would return to drinking and kind of fall off the wagon, because he has to deal with this big secret that the universe he's existing in could just be a simulation. Thorin Grönbeck also writes the wraparound story which sees Thor investigating Thanos' hideout for any hints at what the Black Winter showed him about the Black Infinity Stone, and it leads to some fun familial connections, with Bor being a big part of the story, and the return of Corvus Glaive, who we haven't seen in a long while either, so him becoming a main player over in the Thor solo ongoing is quite cool. Andrea DeVito, Travel Foreman, Jeff Shaw, and Ron Lim depict Thanos' various journeys, making good use of their action sequences and subtler character moments. Travel Foreman's work really stood out to me thanks to his depiction of Cantwell's existential horror, and the torture-filled future we glimpse is really horrifying in a way I didn't think we would see. I thought when we learned that Thanos was going to just be ruling the world, I thought we'd just get the usual sort of, he's enslaved everyone and everything, but Travel really depicts this horrible future of people being subject to having their brains vivisected and their body just ripped apart and everything. It's truly horrifying. Thanos Death Notes Issue 1 was a great set of stories that build out Thanos' past and future as an upcoming threat for Thor to deal with, diving headlong into the complexities of the Mad Titan and promising an exciting set of events for when he inevitably returns. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10. Thanos Death Notes Issue 1 heads to Titan, where Thor and his ravens arrive at the grave of Thanos' mother. The ravens tell Thor that the cave he seeks is close, as Odin thinks that he's chasing dreams. Thor knows this is all he has, as he remembers his vision of an all-powerful Thanos raising the dead Avengers with the Black Infinity Stone. Thor soon meets with Death, who reveals that they are everywhere, especially on Titan. The being wonders why Thor is there, thinking that he is trying to see if Thanos is truly gone, since Thanos always truly belonged to Death. Thor enters Alar's lab, knowing that Thanos would retreat there for respite. Thor discovers Thanos and Alar's files, finding them recently searched. He tells his Raven to continue reading the journals he finds, learning Thanos, like his father, collected information and data on everything, finding they drown in information since they cannot see the wall of knowledge suffocating them. He knew that there was always another viewpoint to consider, wondering how much information his father found before he saw Thanos for who he truly was, and if the rumors and stories yield the truth of Thanos. At some other time, Tony Stark begins a personal log about the Thanos robot now in his lab. He remembers Drax the Destroyer mentally calling to him thanks to being imprisoned by the real Thanos. Iron Man helped out Drax, but Thanos escaped and put a robot in his place, covering his stealthy escape. Tony kept the robot to try and figure out how it works, knowing that he'll need to find an extra edge over the Mad Titan and his advanced technology. Tony doesn't know how to turn it on though, removing his own helmet as he begins running an analysis on it, refusing refusing to remove the rest of his armor since it feels like he's disarming a bomb of sorts. He decides though it's time to melt the robot down when suddenly it comes to life, thinking that it would be a pity to annihilate such a work. The being tries to get free from the restraints Tony has it in, so Tony blows a hole in his arm. Thanos says that he comes bearing a warning, hoping that Tony wants to hear it since it should pique his intellect. The robot says that it should be left alone since if Tony destroys it, he will suffer untold agonies for all eternity. Tony doesn't take kindly to threats, activating his armor's oxytorch and readying to dissect the robot, but the being knows that this game of his has already been won, and it's far more in the future than Tony thinks. Robot Thanos reveals that Thanos will rule supreme over all space and time, and it's already happened, and this reality Iron Man in is just a simulation overseen by Thanos. Tony of course doesn't believe him, so the robot thinks it's not inconceivable to think Thanos, who also created the perfect robot in front of Tony, could control everything in reality. The robot decides it's time to show him, hitting Tony in the eyes with a beam that shows him the real reality, one ruled by Thanos Supreme, who reached back in time to reshape time itself to make sure his rise to godhood is ensured, and everyone who would resist is excised from the simulation and relegated to endless vivisection. Tony demands the robot stop since it's all absurd, since if Thanos was really in control of it all and this is a simulation, then why would he care about one robot? The robot Thanos says that it's the principle of it, since if he rejects the machine, he is against what is to come and needs to be removed from the simulation. It tells Tony to weigh up the possibilities of this happening, so Tony does, finding it not worth the risk. Iron Man rips the robot's head off and panics a little, knowing that no one can know of this if it's true, since if it is, Thanos is everywhere and he will have to hold this nightmare for the rest of his life. At the Tower of Death, a ghostly hologram of Thanos asks how he can obey Mistress Death, told by her servant that there is a severe imbalance in the universe and Death fears that if it continues, their existence will be in peril, so it's up to Thanos to save them. Death says that his talents and perspective are needed, taking them both to a watery world. Thanos says that he loves Death, but the woman knows that it's not always been that way, showing him the ghost of Karella. Death says that the woman is just an echo of herself and she brought him there so they could speak of love, wanting to know about the woman Thanos loved before her. Thanos tells her how Karella was the only woman on Titan who saw behind his ugly visage and treated him with kindness despite it being forbidden. Together they fell in love and for the first time, Thanos felt hope for his life. Their secret romance soon became known to Karella's family, who met in secret to discuss what to do about the abomination known as Thanos. The family members tamper with Thanos' ship he was planning on using to explore other worlds that Titan could populate to help stop their overpopulation problem. Karella wanted to come with him, insisting to Thanos that she'll help, so the two blast off in the ship, but then it explodes. Thanos was gravely injured in the blast, but lived, and so did Karella, who thinks Thanos was right and she should have stayed home. She knows, however, there was nowhere in the universe she would rather be, since she has the chance to do something very rare. She can save Thanos. She knows that it will be 2 days before they are rescued and their air runs out in 1 day, but with her air supply, Thanos can survive for the 2 days. Thanos refuses to but can't move to stop her thanks to being trapped, as Karella removes her mask, calling Thanos her greatest love as she begins feeling lightheaded, leaving Thanos to fall asleep and die in a dark corner of the ship, telling Thanos one final time to live for her. Thanos tells Death that it was a long time before he understood her act of love, and Death reveals that that's why she brought him there. The being says that to be Death is to find and maintain a balance in life, something Karella knew when she sacrificed herself to save Thanos. She knows that he must do what is necessary as an act of love and in the name of Death. As they kiss, Thanos senses something watching them, but Death knows that no one will ever see them or understand what they understand, only seeing him as a monster he must be to make this balance happen. Thanos agrees to be the monster, as in the limbo space, Karella calls for Thanos, knowing that he learned the wrong lesson from her death, calling out to him as she fades away into nothing. Across the stars, Thanos enters a bar looking for his traitorous daughter Nebula, knowing that she was there recently, but the bartender knows that they have rules about releasing info on their clientele, and he won't tell the Mad Titan anything. Thanos finds that annoying, telling the bartender that he's learned that most people have a fear of dying, but he doesn't fear death and he's defeated and embraced it, returning from it on more than one occasion. He knows that beings like the bartender will say anything to stay alive while he does anything. Before he can ask the bartender again, a girl runs into the bar, alerting them of an armada of Docatians who have come to kill Thanos. The bartender knows the alien race are the scourge of the cosmos, with their indestructible fire-breathing warriors and unbreakable skin. He knows they seem to have risen from their centuries-long peaceful existence to deal with Thanos, who knows that it's because they remember that he killed off half the universe. The alien race call Thanos to come out and suffer the judgment for the murder of 5 billion Docatians, which they find him guilty of. Thanos knows that it was only attempted murder as he confronts them, not impressed with the armada they have brought, feeling insulted that they have brought so few. The leader thinks that he talks big, but they'll see how tough he is without the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos knows that he doesn't need a gauntlet for the likes of them, launching himself at the armies and crushing them as he is dogpiled. Sometime later, Thanos returns to the bartender with a dead Docatian, making the bartender exclaim that they are indestructible, so how did Thanos even kill him? Thanos takes a drink, knowing a rock must seem formidable to a flower, but he is a hammer and he knows the bartender will tell him where Nebula is. In the present, Thor continues to look through Thanos' files, finding that there is a file on the Black Stone, but it has been taken, and whoever searched the place got what they were looking for. He soon finds a file on Bor Burison, his grandfather, as the Ravens tell him that he came for answers, but he leaves with questions. Thor finds the spirit of his father inside the hammer has lost his words, asking him what Bor knew of the Black Infinity Stone, but Odin knows that since Bor was not a trusting man, who knows what secrets he took to his grave. Thor returns to Death, asking who came there before him, and Death reveals that it was the Glaive. Thor knows that he speaks of Corvus Glaive, as Death knows that while the Glaive has eluded him, he will get him in the end. He hopes that Thor will stay and keep him company, but Thor refuses, since there is nothing but death on Titan.